Hello family. Welcome to Brandon Tales, your home for gripping African tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Now sit back and enjoy the drama. Lena Carter's world had collapsed on a Tuesday. It started with the familiar ping of her phone, the rent notice she'd been dreading. 4 months late, the message read, "Pay by 5 p.m. tomorrow or vacate the premises." She sat on the edge of her creaky twin bed, the thin mattress groaning beneath her. Dawn light filtered through the dusty blinds, painting stripes across the threadbare carpet. Every square inch of the tiny apartment spoke of desperation. Mismatched furniture, half-empty boxes, unpaid bills stacked neatly in a corner. At 24, Lena had thought she could conquer the world. A champion dancer in her hometown, she'd dazzled audiences with leaps and turns that defied gravity. But one miscalculated twirl on a slick stage floor had shattered her dreams and her ankle. Surgery and months of rehabilitation followed, leaving her unable to perform. Dance studios closed their doors. Casting calls ceased to interest her once prodigy legs. The money she'd saved vanished in medical bills and rent. When her final savings drained to zero, reality sank in. Without her career, she was adrift. Her small phone buzzed again. Another reminder. The landlord, Mr. Dorsey, wanted payment or eviction. "I'll be out on the street," she whispered, voice cracking. Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them back. Pride kept her from calling friends for help. She was independent, had always been independent, but the apartment's marble lobby and designer doorman only reminded her of how far she'd fallen. A knock on the door startled her. Heart pounding, she scurried across the cramped living room, avoiding a stack of unpaid phone bills. Through the peephole, she spotted the dark silhouette of Mr. Dorsey, tall, impeccably dressed, his tailored suit hinting at immense wealth. His eyes glinted with something she couldn't read. Lena opened the door. "Good morning, Mr. Dorsey," she managed, voice brittle. He stepped inside as though invited. "Your lease is up tomorrow," he said, voice smooth as silk. He let the words hang before continuing. "I understand circumstances change." She swallowed hard. "I'm working on it. My next gig starts in 3 weeks." He raised a hand. "No more dates. No more plans. You owe 4 months. If you can't pay, you must leave." He folded his arms, arching one eyebrow. "However, I can offer an alternative." Her pulse spiked. Alternative? He retrieved an envelope from his jacket pocket, thick, embossed with a gold monogram. A proposition. He offered it like a gift. Hesitating, Lena accepted. The weight of the envelope felt significant, heavier than ordinary paper. She slid her finger under the seal and opened it, revealing a sheaf of legal documents. "What is this?" she asked. "A contract," he explained. "You occupy this apartment rent-free for 48 hours. In return, you complete my loyalty test." Lena frowned. "Loyalty test?" He nodded. "No money exchanged. Simply obedience. You follow every instruction I give, no questions asked. If you pass, your debt is wiped clean." He paused. "If you fail, eviction and damages." Her mind reeling, she pictured herself on the sidewalk with a cardboard box of her belongings, her dreams crumbling. "Debt wiped clean," she echoed. He smiled, polished, unsettling. "Just a fresh start." He held out a pen. "Do you accept?" Lena's gut twisted. Something felt off, too easy, too ominous. Yet shadows of eviction stalked her future. She inhaled, exhaled. Pride battled panic, pride lost. "What do I have to lose?" she whispered, voice trembling. He slid the pen across. She signed. Every stroke felt like sealing a fate she couldn't yet imagine. The ink dried, and a crisp page declared her agreement. He extracted a sleek black bracelet from his pocket and snapped it onto her wrist. "This tracks your location, vital signs, and activity. For your safety." He eyed her seriously. "You begin tonight." Lena stared at the bracelet, its smooth surface cool against her skin. "Tonight?" He nodded. "Report to the mansion at 9. You'll receive your first instructions." He turned on his heel, his coat tails brushing the doorway. "Remember, loyalty above all. Disobedience ends everything." The door clicked shut. Lena sank onto the sofa, heart pounding. She stared at the contract's fine print. Clauses about consent, termination, penalties. Words blurred before her eyes. The world she knew seemed to warp. Furniture shifted, the walls closed in. In the dim afternoon light, the apartment looked more like a trap than a home. Sunset came too quickly. She paced, her mind replaying the day's events. She ate a can of cold beans, hands shaking. At 8:45, she changed into the black leggings and hooded sweatshirt provided in an earlier envelope. No makeup, no frills, just anonymity. The knock at the door came at precisely 8:59. A driver in gray gloves escorted her to a sleek black SUV idling in the alley. She slid in, breath catching at the plush leather seats. Through tinted windows, she recognized the mansion, a sprawling estate set behind iron gates and marble columns. Ornate gardens bloomed under strategically placed spotlights. Cameras glimmered atop every corner. Inside, the mansion's foyer yawned before her, a cathedral of pale stone and golden accents. High ceilings arched overhead, and a massive chandelier dripped crystals like frozen waterfalls. Portraits of stern aristocrats watched from the walls. Lena's pulse echoed in her ears. "Follow me," said a stern house manager, leading her into a conference room. A long mahogany table stood centered, surrounded by high-backed chairs. Mr. Dorsey sat at the head, flanked by two imposing security officers. He looked up, expression unreadable. "Welcome, Lena. Are you prepared?" Her voice quavered. "I think so." He slid a clipboard toward her, listing tasks. 1. Midnight dog walk, walk his Doberman Max, around the estate grounds at 12 a.m. 2. Mirror reflection, stand before the grand mirror in the East Hall at 9 a.m. for 10 uninterrupted minutes. 3. Meal compliance, consume only meals provided, no deviations. 4. No communication, no phone use except for emergency calls. Lena's stomach nodded at each line. "And if I complete these?" He offered a chilling smile. Debt erased. Freedom reclaimed. "If I fail?" Her voice was a whisper. "Eviction. Legal action." He tapped the table. "You understand the stakes." Lena nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Good." He rose, signaling the end of the meeting. "First task begins at midnight. You have time to rest or dread." He turned and exited, leaving Lena alone with her pounding heart. Down a long corridor, she found her suite. Minimal, white walls, a single bed with crisp linens, a side table holding a sealed box for dinner. She didn't unpack. Instead, she sat on the bed, listening. The house was unnervingly quiet, save for distant hums of air conditioning and the soft tick of an expensive clock. The box sat untouched until 11:45. Hunger gnawed at her, but nerves ruled. At midnight's approach, she donned a coat and slippers and left her room. The hallway lights dimmed as she passed sensors. The east wing's doors to the courtyard hissed open. Max was waiting, muscular, glossy, eyes glowing in the moonlight. He stood motionless, ears perked. Lena's heart hammered as she took the leash and clipped it to his collar. He lunged forward, protective, sniffing the air. Together, they walked the manicured path. Statues of winged angels loomed like sentinels. Fountains whispered secrets in the darkness. Her pulse roared. Each rustle in the shrubbery sent adrenaline coursing. Max stayed close, his calm presence easing her tension. They completed a full circuit in 20 minutes. At 12:20 a.m., they returned. Max gave a soft bark, then circled and sat contentedly at Lena's feet. Inside, the house glowed in soft recess lighting. Lena returned the dog to his handler, voice shaking. "He's well-behaved." The handler nodded curtly. "Attend to the mirror at 9. Then vanished. Lena exhaled, a tremor passing through her. She wandered to the mirror's alcove, a vast, gilded frame housing polished glass. Approaching, she saw her reflection, eyes hollow, cheeks pale. She pressed her palm against the surface. A faint hum vibrated beneath her touch. Voices echoed down the corridor, Mr. Dorsey's. Lena spun, retreating. The clock ticks, his voice smoothed from afar. Be on time. Alone, Lena stared at the mirror. Anxiety thrummed in her veins. She traced trembling fingers along the frame's ornate carvings. The mirror seemed to pulse, as if alive. She pictured the contract's fine print. Disobedience ended everything. What horrors awaited a misstep? Morning light slanted through narrow windows. At exactly 9 a.m., Lena stood before the mirror. 10 minutes of silence. Her breathing echoed. Thoughts raced: eviction, humiliation, chains of the bracelet. Sweat beaded on her brow. She clenched her fists, pressing palms flat against the cold glass. Minutes felt like hours. Her reflection blurred, eyes watering. Then a chime sounded, soft, electronic. Lena blinked. The mirror's glass shimmered before a panel on its side slid open, revealing a touchscreen. A message glowed: task completed. Relief crashed through her, followed by dread. Only 2 of 4 tasks done, still half the journey. Hours ahead lay unknown instructions, unknown consequences. She exited the alcove. The mansion's corridors stretched into the distance. Luxury at her fingertips, yet each step felt like walking a tightrope above an abyss. She remembered Mr. Dorsey's parting words: loyalty above all. Was obedience worth freedom? Or did the price of her debt outweigh the tests of her soul? With the bracelet's cool weight on her wrist and the echo of her heartbeat in her ears, Lena Carter, broke, jobless, desperate, embarked on the loyalty test that would define her fate. The real test, she realized, wasn't obedience. It was survival. Lena awoke at dawn, the mansion's silence pressing against her skull like a vice. Moonlight had given way to pale morning glow, and the soft hum of air vents replaced the distant drip of fountains she'd heard through the night. Her limbs ached from the midnight walk with Max, and every inch of her body felt heavy with dread. She rose, slipped into the gray lounge where provided, and padded down the corridor toward the east wing, where a tray awaited her. Today, she reminded herself, was day 2. And day 2 demanded absolute compliance. In the bright antechamber, the silver-plated breakfast tray gleamed. Steamed vegetables, hard-boiled egg, plain oatmeal, and a sealed envelope bearing her name in elegant script. A discreet speaker crackled to life. "Good morning, Miss Carter. Please consume the meal in its entirety. No substitutions. When finished, open your envelope and await further instructions." Lena's throat tightened as she sat at the marble-top table. She ate mechanically, each bite dry and flavorless. With trembling fingers, she tore open the envelope and unfolded the crisp card inside. Day 2 instructions, it read. 1. Reflective obedience, stand before the grand mirror at precisely 8 a.m. and recite. Obedience is loyalty, loyalty is life. 2. Object presentation, retrieve 3 objects from the library: a leather-bound journal, a carved statuette, a crystal decanter. 3. Polish and present, polish each object in the Hall of Mirrors until surfaces gleam, then present them to Mr. Dorsey at 10:30 a.m. 4. Silent service, at noon, deliver lunch to his study without speaking or making eye contact. Below, fine print footnotes reminded her that cameras and audio devices monitored every movement, and that failure to complete any task would trigger termination protocols. Lena's pulse thundered. Obedience was no longer an abstract concept. It was a matter of survival. She rose and made her way to the grand mirror, recalling the tremor of the first reflection task. At exactly 8 a.m., she stood motionless and spoke the mandated phrase. The heavy words felt alien on her tongue, but she repeated them 3 times, voice echoing off polished walls. After a pulse, soft but unmistakable, the mirror's hidden panel slid open, revealing a small red light and a faint chime signaling success. Next, the library, a vast room lined with shelves that climbed toward vaulted ceilings. Rows of leather-bound volumes cast long shadows beneath wrought iron sconces. Lena located the journal, its cover embossed with a gold filigree, then found the ebony statuette of a woman in mid-dance and a heavy crystal decanter etched with floral motifs. Each weighty item felt significant in her arms, reminders of lives that had preceded her within these walls. In the adjoining Hall of Mirrors, she knelt on the marble floor to polish. Her reflection multiplied endlessly, dozens of Lenas, all bent over cloths buffing each surface. Sweat beaded at her temples as she worked, knuckles whitening around the polishing rag. She recalled her days as a dancer, fingertips tracing satin point shoes, the familiar rhythm of practice. Now her hands lathered polish onto wood, wiped at reflections that were no longer her own. Time slipped away until a gentle chime echoed through the hall. At 10:30 a.m., she gathered the objects on a silver tray and carried them toward Mr. Dorsey's study. The corridor narrowed as she approached, and she felt the lenses of hidden cameras tracking her every step. She knocked once, heart hammering, and entered. He sat behind a mahogany desk, steepling his fingers, eyes cool. On the desk lay 3 pedestals, each awaiting their designated object. Without pausing to breathe, Lena set the journal on the left pedestal, the statuette in the center, and the decanter on the right. She stepped back and bowed her head, arms pressed stiffly at her sides. He regarded the display with a slight nod. "Clean lines," he murmured. "Precision. You may proceed." Lena exited without a word, breath ragged. The silence outside his door crashed over her. 1 task down, 2 to go. At noon, her final assignment loomed: lunch delivery. She found the tray, a modest salad of steamed greens and boiled chicken breast, placed on a service cart. The instructions warned against speech and eye contact, so she steered the cart quietly down marble corridors, eavesdropping on her own shallow breaths. As she neared the study door, she heard muted voices, distant laughter, a polite cough. Her palms grew slick. She knocked softly, then opened the door. Mr. Dorsey looked up without surprise. The study's walls were lined with artworks, oils, and watercolors, each more lavish than the last. Lena entered, positioning the tray on a side table, then backed away on autopilot. She dared not glance at him. A final click of her bracelet announced task completion. Outside, she exhaled, legs trembling. Barely an hour remained until sunset tasks would arrive via email. She found a quiet alcove and sank to the floor, pressing her back against cool stone. Her thoughts spun. What sort of test forced obeisance at the cost of dignity? Why anything so elaborate? She had obeyed every command, but relief felt tempered by the gnawing dread of what lay ahead. A chime from her implanted bracelet jolted her upright. A small screen lit up on its surface. 20 minutes, prepare for the dance. Where the costume provided. Memorize choreography. Perform at 5 p.m. in the South Wing Ballroom. Lena stared at the words. A dance. Her past and present collided. She had once moved effortlessly across stages. Now, the very idea tightened her throat. But refusal was not an option. Survival demanded compliance. She navigated to the East Wing and entered a dressing room bathed in rose gold light. A rack held a single costume, a pale gray leotard with long sleeves and mesh panels, paired with flowing chiffon skirt and dance slippers embossed with a monogram identical to the one on the contract. She slipped into the outfit, the fabric cool and unfamiliar against her skin. No mirror here, only her reflection on the swivel door, fluid and tense. A laminated sheet lay on a small table, a series of stick figure diagrams depicting dance positions, counts, turns. Lena's eyes stung as she traced the printed lines. Choir music tinkled through hidden speakers, soft piano notes, building into a soaring crescendo. She practiced steps in time, plie, arabesque, pirouette. It felt instinctual yet alien, as though she were a marionette guided by invisible strings. After 20 minutes, she had memorized the sequence, but her body protested. Calves ached, ankles screamed after months of rest. At 4:30 p.m., she gathered in the South Wing Ballroom, a cavernous hall with polished hardwood floors and massive arched windows overlooking the gardens. Flickering chandeliers cast fragmented light across pale walls. A single camera on a tripod faced the center of the floor. She took her place and waited. A voice, neutral, detached, echoed through the hall. Begin. Lena drew a breath and stepped into motion. Music swelled, rich strings accompanied by piano, and she moved through the choreography. Each position demanded precision, arms arching, legs extending, head tilting. She forced herself to breathe steadily, masking the terror that pooled in her stomach. Twice, she felt the floor tremble with distant footsteps, but she never broke eye line with the camera. As the final bars echoed and her final pose held, arm extended, fingers brushing imaginary light, silence returned. The camera's red light blinked off. A soft click announced her success. She exhaled, trembling, and sank to one knee. Her heart pounded, adrenaline coursed through her veins, and tears pricked her eyes. Footsteps approached. The house manager's voice crackled. "Report to the banquet hall for your final task of the day. Time is of the essence." Lena rose unsteadily, muscles quivering beneath the leotard. She left the ballroom, each step echoing, and ascended a short flight of stairs. At the banquet hall entry, she paused, breath caught in her throat. The door loomed before her, behind which lay whatever test would seal her fate. Her bracelet vibrated, and the screen glowed. 1 hour until completion window closes. Failure is not an option. Her pulse thundered as she placed her hand on the door handle. She inhaled deeply, steeling herself. 48 hours remained. She had survived day 2, barely. Tomorrow would bring new demands. Loyalty, it seemed, was no refuge. It was a cage. Cliffhanger. She stepped inside, and the chandelier's crystals fractured into thousands of hidden lenses, all trained on her silhouette. Lena stumbled through the dim corridor, exhaustion weighing down her limbs like lead. Just hours earlier, she had narrowly completed the harrowing dance performance in the South Wing ballroom, every muscle screaming, her breath ragged. Now, she navigated the silent passages toward the East Wing suite, body humming with adrenaline and dread. Her heart pounded as memories of the loyalty tests flashed through her mind. Obedience had spared her from immediate eviction, but each task tightened the noose of Mr. Dorsey's control a little more. She paused before the ornate mirror in her suite's antechamber, its golden frame gleaming under the cool ceiling light. Caught in its reflection was the tablet she had found wedged behind a loose panel during her final test yesterday, the device labeled confession files. It lay on the marble vanity, its screen dark and silent. Lena approached cautiously, every footstep echoing in the hushed air. She reached out a trembling hand and tapped the power icon. The tablet sprang to life. Rows of red-tinged thumbnails appeared, each labeled with a cryptic subject code, Subject 1, Subject 2, and so on. The first file bore a date 6 months ago. She tapped it. A video stuttered into motion, a young woman in the familiar gray jumpsuit pacing a bare room. The walls mirrored Lena's own suite, pale wallpaper, a single bed, spare furnishings. The woman's eyes darted around, panic etched on her face. "Please let me go," the subject whispered, voice quavering. "I'll do anything, I swear." She stopped, staring into the camera lens. A single tear trickled down her cheek. Then the footage cut abruptly to black, a distorted scream echoing into silence. Lena gasped, her breath catching in her throat. She tapped the next thumbnail. A middle-aged woman, cheeks stained with tears, knelt on the floor. "I trusted you," she sobbed, her tone pleading. "I gave you my word." The camera angled downward to a faint puddle of water beneath her as the clip ended. No conclusion, only dread. Lena recoiled. These women had vanished, their final pleas devoured by shadow. She pressed her palm against the cold vanity, chest tightening. How many had come before her? And what awaited those who failed? A low mechanical were sounded from the tablet, and a new prompt appeared, failed subjects archived in confidence vault. An ominous directory icon glowed. Lena's stomach churned. She tapped it with shaking fingers and discovered dozens more recordings, each ending in darkness and despair. She scrolled until she saw a date marked yesterday. The thumbnail showed a still of a closed eye. She pressed play. Her own face filled the screen, eyes fluttering, lips parted in sleep. She lay on her bed, wrists bare, the tablet's glow illuminating her features. Lena recognized the angle. It was a hidden camera above the doorway, capturing her unconscious in vulnerable repose. A cold sweat broke across her skin. She scrambled backward, heart hammering. The tablet clattered to the floor. Lena fell to her knees, pressing her hands against her ears as if the pounding in her skull would burst out. "Why are you showing me this?" she whispered, voice shaking. "What do you want from me?" A crackling voice echoed from the room's single speaker, disguised in a wall sconce. "Curiosity." Mr. Dorsey's tone was detached. "Is a dangerous quality, Miss Carter. You sought knowledge. Now you hold the power, or perhaps the poison." Lena's hands trembled, tears blurring her vision. "I obeyed your commands. I completed every task. Why torture me with these recordings?" He emerged from the shadows, tall and impeccable, his suit crisp despite the hour. "Obedience," he said, "is only the first step. True loyalty lies in confession, revealing your innermost self to me." He gestured toward the tablet. "Tell me your secrets, or become one more file in my archive." Her jaw clenched, rage flared in her veins. "This is sick. You think you can break me, shame me?" He raised a thin hand. "No. I will test you. Tonight, you confess everything you hide. The good, the bad, the shame. Speak honestly, and you may earn permission to leave this place." Lena's pulse thundered in her ears. Permission to leave? Not freedom. He inclined his head. "Freedom is earned, Miss Carter. You have yet to prove you deserve it." With that, he swept from the suite, leaving Lena crumpled on the floor. She reached for the tablet, opened a new prompt: confession, truth or consequence. The words glared like a verdict. She rubbed her temples, pressing her forehead against cool marble. Memories surged, her first audition, heart racing, the applause of strangers, the moment she sacrificed her dreams for a reckless night out that ended in scandal. She closed her eyes, body trembling. A soft chime from the hallway announced his final message. "You have 30 minutes. The clock is ticking." Lena inhaled, fought bile rising in her throat. She rose unsteadily and tapped the next instruction: "Begin when ready." Her reflection shimmered in the mirror. She squared her shoulders, pressed lips together, and spoke into the tablet's microphone. "My name is Lena Carter. My deepest regret is—" her voice wavered, but she forced the words out. She confessed the evening she forsook rehearsal for a fleeting thrill, the harsh disappointment in her mother's eyes, the scholarship she lost forever. She revealed the lies she told friends, the nights she cried alone, the guilt that gnawed at her soul. Time blurred. The tablet recorded her words, and the room absorbed them. When her voice cracked on the final admission, Lena pressed submit. Silence engulfed her. She waited, breath shaking, for the verdict. Seconds passed. The screen glowed. Confession received. Evaluation in progress. A timer counted down, 60 seconds. Lena closed her eyes as the tally ticked toward 0. At 0, the screen blinked. Verdict. Subject continues. Next task available. Relief surged, followed by a hollow ache. She had passed, but at what cost? A new file icon appeared. Final test, purity or exile. Below, brief text. Prepare for departure instructions at dawn. Any deviation will incur consequences. Lena stared at the words, mind racing. He would decide when to send her away, or perhaps keep her for further trials. She closed the tablet and slipped it into her satchel. She could not stay here much longer. She needed a plan, allies, an escape route. As she sank onto the edge of her bed, her gaze fell on the mirror. In its reflective depths, she saw not only herself but every woman who had danced this perilous waltz of obedience and broken freedom. Each face glared back, silent and accusing. Lena pressed her hand against the cool glass, as if willing their strength into her bones. Tomorrow would bring new trials. But tonight, she vowed, she would not become another confession file. She would write her own final chapter, one of survival and retribution. And if Mr. Dorsey thought he could bury her beneath his archive, he had not counted on the fire that burned behind her eyes. In the hush of the suite, Lena whispered to her reflection, "I am not afraid of your secrets anymore. I will show you mine, and I will not break." Outside, the night wind through the estate's gates, carrying echoes of water from the fountains. Lena steadied herself, heartbeat slowing. She had glimpsed the abyss, but she stood at its edge, fierce and unyielding. Dawn would decide her fate, She would not yield. Lena Carter woke to a hush. The silence of the mansion pressed in around her, but beneath it pulsed a current, hope. She had survived 3 days of Mr. Dorsey's twisted tests, and though each victory felt Pyrrhic, she now carried within her a weapon more potent than obedience, knowledge recruited in darkness. Last night, after her confession exercise, she had slipped coded notes beneath her neighbor's door. Each note consisted of a letter, a number, or an arrow, simple symbols that only Jade would understand. Jade, the resident artist whose charcoal sketches Lena had glimpsed in passing, haunting portraits of struggle and revolt. Jade, whose eyes on the elevator had shone with unspoken solidarity. Lena tapped into that flash of kinship and hoped for an ally. At dawn, a soft vibration on her wrist drew her from restless sleep. A message scrolled on the bracelet's tiny screen. Note received. See you today. 3 p.m. Library door. J. Relief and adrenaline coursed through her veins. Jade had decoded the message. They would meet. But first, Lena needed evidence. She returned to the tablet she had hidden beneath her mattress. Late last night, she discovered a dropped keycard behind a loose floorboard in the mirror alcove, a card granting access to Mr. Dorsey's private server room in the basement. No one else had noticed. She crept down twisting hallways and strong-armed a door to the study, where Mr. Dorsey had carelessly left a master key in plain sight on his desk. She slipped it into her pocket, heart pounding at every creak of the floor. Back in her suite, she washed her face and scrubbed her palms, as if to cleanse guilt. She tucked the key card into her jeans pocket. Then, in the soft morning light filtering through high windows, she donned a hoodie over her leotard and slippers, practical attire for stealth. No mirror to reflect her battered spirit, only the looming threat of surveillance. She slipped into the corridor, each step calibrated to avoid the sensors. She descended a service staircase, emerging into the basement's cool air. Banks of servers hummed, their lights blinking in patterned rhythms. Lena swiped the keycard and entered. Inside, racks of drives stored endless video files, audio logs, and transcripts. She pressed a single button to copy everything to a USB drive she had smuggled in her satchel. The drive whirred as it filled with his secrets, days of recordings, dossiers on every subject, private audio monologues. Finally, the progress bar reached 100%. She exhaled, pocketed the USB, and retraced her steps, heart hammering at imagined alarms. Now, with the drive safe in her jacket pocket, Lena prepared for the meeting. She hid the tablet behind a loose panel in her bed frame. Then she slinked down the halls to Jade's door on the 3rd floor. Motion detectors dimmed overhead as she approached. She slid her USB beneath the gap. A moment later, she spotted another drive glinting on the other side. She retrieved it, heart racing. Inside her suite, she retrieved the tablet from its hiding spot and inserted Jade's USB into its port. The screen flickered to life. Video files lined the desktop. Camera_app2. Client_login, audio_log. She opened the first file. Footage streamed from hidden cameras. Mr. Dorsey watching women sleeping, pacing, begging. He narrated softly, "They're mine for as long as I allow." The next file was an audio clip of him rehearsing manipulative lines, "Obey or lose everything." Each revelation cut like shards of glass. Her pulse thundered. She scrolled to a text document. Subject index. A list of women, dates, and statuses, active, failed, pending. Her own name glowed in red under active. Below, a header titled Future Targets displayed dozens more names. She swallowed bile. He planned to continue indefinitely. At 2:45 p.m., she navigated the silent halls to the library. Floor-to-ceiling shelves curved overhead, lantern sconces glowed. She found the oak door marked Restricted Access and tapped thrice in Morse code on its frame. Jade emerged from the shadows, tall, tattoo-sleeved arms folded, eyes fierce. "Lena," Jade breathed, relief flooding her face. "You got it." "I got it," Lena confirmed, holding up the server drive. All his archives, video, audio logs. She slid the thumb drive across a reading station. Jade plugged it into her laptop. Files loaded in seconds. They pored over footage of Mr. Dorsey's darkest moments, each confession he forced, every plea ignored, every manipulation laid bare. Lena's stomach twisted as she watched a clip of him ordering a subject to crawl across the marble floor while reciting loyalty vows. "Look at this," Jade whispered, voice low. She clicked a clip showing Dorsey commenting during a live feed, "They break for me." The room's glow illuminated his predatory smile. "I'm disgusted," Lena muttered. "But we can end this." Jade nodded. "We need a decisive strike, a public reveal he can't ignore. I've set up a private live stream channel. Tonight at the final test, we hijack his cameras and broadcast everything. Thousands will watch." Lena's breath caught. "The final test is my loyalty confession. He expects submission. I'll give him loyalty to truth." Her resolve steeled. "What's the plan?" Jade outlined details. Lena would wear a concealed mic and camera. Jade would reroute the mansion's internal network to their stream. They'd time it for peak viewership and send the link to contacts. By midnight, Jade promised, it'll trend worldwide. Lena nodded, adrenaline spiking. They set laptops, tested connections, and synchronized watches. Jade then pressed a hand to Lena's arm. "One more thing." "What?" Lena asked. "There's one more document." Jade opened a file titled Corporate Collateral. The header read Landlord Assets. Inside lay deeds, offshore accounts, shell company registrations. His empire is more than a house. We can dismantle the entire structure. Lena's eyes widened. "We'll bring him down completely." Jade nodded. "Yes. And rescue the women he targets." A chime echoed. Jade checked her watch. 2:59 p.m. Time. Lena exhaled. "Let's finish this." They rose. Jade slipped the contract voiding document into Lena's hand, a legal notice drafted by Jade's contacts. It declared Mr. Dorsey's original contract invalid due to unlawful surveillance and coercion. Lena descended the stairs to the study. The corridor lights brightened as she approached his door. Inside, Mr. Dorsey stood behind his desk, arms folded, the contract before him. His smile was slow and predatory. "Impressive you showed up," he purred. "Are you ready for your final confession?" She entered, chin high. "Yes." He gestured to a chair. "Please sit." She sat, hiding the voided contract in her palm. A camera's red light blinked. He leaned forward. "Speak your loyalty." She inhaled, heart thunderous. Her bracelet vibrated. Jade's feed was live. "I pledge loyalty," she began, voice steady, "to truth and justice." Dorsey's brow furrowed. "You mean?" She slapped the contract on his desk. "Sign this." His eyes flicked to the paper. "This voids our agreement." He snatched it. "How?" Lena tapped her bracelet. Suddenly, screens around the study flickered to life, showing every hidden camera feed. His rehearsed monologues, his victims' tears, his manipulation unmasked. The audio leak filled the room with his own words, echoing back at him. He rose, pale. "Stop this." Before she could react, Jade's signal triggered a flood of notifications across social media. Landlord loyalty test exposed, trended globally. Millions clicked the private link, now public. In a heartbeat, police sirens wailed. Officers battered down the door and stormed in. Dorsey lunged at a monitor but was tackled to the ground. Handcuffs clicked. Lena's heart pounded as she watched him restrained, rage twisting his features. Later, in the grand foyer, Lena and Jade watched the live feed on a borrowed tablet. View counts climbed by the second. Comments streamed in, victims pledging support, journalists demanding justice, viewers applauding their courage. Jade slipped an arm around Lena's waist. "We did it." Lena rested her head on Jade's shoulder. "We did." Outside, dawn's first rays touched the mansion's gates. Lena stood with Jade, free at last. The contract she held now was one of empowerment, one she had written herself. She looked to Jade. "What's next?" Jade squeezed her hand. "We help the others." Lena nodded, eyes bright. "Together." In the soft light, two women walked away from cruelty and toward justice, their shadows stretching long, unbroken, unbowed, and free. Lena Carter moved through the grand corridors of Dorsey Mansion with quiet determination. The morning's triumph, exposing Mr. Dorsey's surveillance network and voiding his contract, had been followed by a whirlwind of police activity. Detectives scoured hidden cameras, secured evidence, and escorted frightened victims from locked rooms. By midday, the mansion buzzed with reporters, flashing lights, and the distant wail of sirens. Yet Lena's focus remained singular: tonight's final loyalty test. She found Jade in the makeshift command center, the former music room repurposed with laptops, monitors, and tangled wires. Jade's eyes gleamed as she reviewed analytics. "The stream has 10 million views," she reported without looking up. "Every major outlet is covering it. The hashtag Landlord exposed is everywhere." Lena offered a tired smile. "We did that." Jade waved her hand. "And we're not done. The final test is scheduled for 10 p.m. in the main ballroom. Dorsey's lawyers are scrambling, but he insisted on one last demonstration of compliance. He's desperate to regain control." Lena's chest tightened. She had agreed to that test when she signed his contract, but now he had no power. She took a deep breath. "What's the assignment?" Jade tapped at her keyboard. "Your last task, a live loyalty confession, streamed to a private audience. He expects remorse and devotion. When you appear, we'll hijack the feed, switch to our live stream, revealing the evidence and his crimes. Police are ready to move in on signal." Lena nodded. The plan was set, yet a twinge of nervousness knotted her stomach. This final confrontation, in front of every camera he'd installed, would seal both their fates. At 8 p.m., Lena retreated to her suite for preparation. She dressed in a simple black dress layered over the gray leotard, a symbolic nod to the contract's color scheme. On her wrist, the neutral bracelet remained, its data feed rerouted by Jade to broadcast her live confession. She clipped a tiny mic to her collar and slipped a miniature camera into her hair. Her breath came steady, controlled. A soft knock announced Jade's arrival. "Time?" Lena asked. 9:30, Jade replied. "We'll cut the feed at 10 sharp. Police will storm in by 10:05. She handed Lena a stylus. "If you need to trigger the override manually, tap the stylus 3 times against the bracelet." Lena accepted it. "Understood." Jade gave her a firm hug. "Tonight, it's all in your hands." Alone again, Lena gazed into the mirror. The woman who stared back bore dark shadows beneath her eyes, but her gaze was unwavering. She pressed a finger to her heart. "For every woman he's harmed," she whispered. "This is for you." At 9:15 p.m., Lena followed Jade's directions to the main ballroom. Crimson drapes framed tall windows, and crystal chandeliers hung overhead like icicles. Dozens of hidden cameras glinted in the shadows. Police blocked the side doors. Journalists clustered outside the grand entrance. A small audience of Dorsey's remaining associates, his lawyer, a few disgraced board members, sat at a long table beneath a sign that read, "Final Loyalty Test." At stage left, a single podium waited. The teleprompter flickered silently. Lena crossed the polished floor, heels clicking, and took the podium. The spotlight warmed her face. Mr. Dorsey emerged from a side door, wearing a somber expression. His tailored suit looked stiff, ill-fitting to a man unaccustomed to scandal. He nodded curtly. "Ms. Carter, thank you for participating in this final demonstration of your devotion." He motioned to the teleprompter. "When you're ready, please speak your truth." Lena lifted her chin and placed her hands flat on the podium. Her voice echoed in the hushed hall. "I promised you loyalty," she began, drawing a breath. "When you offered to clear my debt, I believed you, trusted you, to honor that promise. I obeyed your rules, faced your ordeals, and confessed my deepest secrets, all to meet your definition of loyalty." Dorsey's lips curled in anticipation. Cameras pivoted toward her. The teleprompter ahead displayed her pre-approved script. "I regret my mistakes and pledge my unwavering devotion." Lena paused, then glanced down and ad-libbed, "But loyalty without justice is betrayal." At her words, confusion rippled across the audience. Dorsey's eyes narrowed. Lena tapped the silenced mic 3 times against her bracelet. Instantly, the massive screen behind her, intended to display her pre-recorded confession, flickered violently and switched feeds. The room's hush shattered as the footage rolled. Every hidden camera clip, every audio confession, every secret file, uncensored and unfiltered, blazed across the screen. Gasping, the onlookers stared in mounting horror. Journalists pounded on doors to gain entry, frustrated clicks and shouts echoed. Dorsey leaped toward the podium. "Stop this," he bellowed, voice cracking. "Your loyalty test is over," Lena said firmly, stepping away from the podium. "Now it's time for accountability." Channels worldwide erupted as the feed went public. Tweets exploded. Live comments scrolled like wildfire. Reports called it the most spectacular corporate takedown in recent memory. Lena watched as viewers shared stories of his victims, each acknowledging her courage. Dorsey lunged at the overturned podium, yanking cables. The screen flickered, but Jade's backup stream had already gone live. Her voice echoed from hidden speakers in the hall. "This is a public service broadcast. All evidence against Martin Dorsey is now available at silenttests.org. Police should arrive within minutes." Chaos ensued. Security guards rushed the stage, but police officers surged through side doors, weapons drawn. They tackled Dorsey to the floor, shouting commands. He screamed and thrashed, but handcuffs snapped shut around his wrists. Lena stood alongside Jade at the ballroom entrance. Journalists flooded in, cameras aimed. Flashbulbs lit their faces like fireworks. Lena's heart pounded, but she felt a lightness in her chest, as though the weight of every victim's suffering had been lifted. A detective approached, offering her a pair of plastic gloves and an evidence tag. "Miss Carter?" he asked. She nodded. "I'm Lena Carter. This will be critical for prosecution." He gestured to the podium. "Thank you for your cooperation." Later, in the grand foyer beneath shattered mirrors and overhead pruning of lights, Lena and Jade shared a quiet moment. Reporters clamored for interviews. Police roped off evidence. Yet between them, an unspoken bond sparkled. "You okay?" Jade asked. Lena inhaled, exhaled. "Better than I have in months." They turned to watch as police escorted Dorsey, head bowed in shame. His empire lay in rubble. Dozens of survivors filed out of hidden rooms, tearful and relieved, offering thanks to Lena as they passed. Each embraced the woman who had risked everything. At midnight, the mansion's gates swung open one last time. A black unmarked car rolled up to the entrance. Lena and Jade climbed in, exhausted but triumphant. "Where now?" Jade asked, rubbing her wrists where the mic pack had been clipped. Lena gazed at the receding mansion. Dawn twilight colored the sky in soft pinks. "We built something new," she said. "A foundation for survivors, a platform for truth. No more tests, just justice." Jade smiled. "Let's call it Silent Tests." Lena nodded. "Silent no more." They drove away as the first rays of sun ignited the horizon. Behind them, the fortress of coercion stood silent, powerless, and defeated. Ahead, a world awakened to the power of truth, and 2 women determined to enforce it. Cliffhanger. In her pocket, Lena's phone buzzed with an unknown number. She glanced down. A text preview read, "We have more questions for you." Lena Carter stood beneath the midday sun, the Broadgate Hall steps bustling with supporters, survivors, and curious onlookers. It had been a week since Martin Dorsey's arrest, and the world was still reeling from the revelations. Cameras clustered like birds on perches, capturing every gesture, every expression of the young woman who had dared to challenge a powerful predator. Lena raised a hand in greeting, heartbreak and victory etched across her face. Behind her, the banner read, "Silent Tests Foundation. Justice, not coercion." The previous 3 days had blurred into a flurry of press conferences, legal depositions, and therapy sessions scheduled for survivors once isolated in hidden rooms. Lena's phone had never stopped buzzing. Interview requests, support messages, legal queries from human rights groups. She had spent hour after hour in solemn conference rooms, testifying about her ordeal, providing evidence, and offering counsel to those still in shock. Each word cost her something, but each word also liberated someone else. On the podium, Lena cleared her throat. Microphones protruded from every angle. "Thank you," she began, voice strong despite her exhaustion. "Because of your courage, we have taken back control. We have shown that loyalty, true loyalty, belongs to justice, not coercion." Applause rippled across the plaza. Jade stood at her side, plastering a proud smile on her face. They had planned this moment meticulously: speeches by survivors, music from an ensemble of local artists, and the unveiling of a digital archive accessible to anyone with an internet connection. A gentle breeze fluttered the Foundation's brochures. Among the crowd, Detective Myers, the lead investigator on Dorsey's case, approached. His nod was brisk but approving. "Your testimony was critical," he said quietly. "We have enough evidence for long prison sentences. Dorsey and his accomplices will pay." Lena offered him a tired smile. "Thank you. It's not just about punishment. It's about awareness. We want this to stop everywhere." After the ceremony, Jade led Lena to a side tent where survivors shared their stories in private booths. The booths were simple: comfortable chairs, soft lighting, a recorder and camcorder that captured every testimonial for the Foundation's protected archive. Lena watched women of all ages recount cruelty, coercion, and triumph. Some wept, others spoke with steely resolve. One survivor, a former journalist named Marisol, looked at Lena through trembling eyes. "You saved me," she whispered. Lena squeezed her hand, voice soft. "No. You saved yourself." By evening, a gala dinner at the City Museum awaited. Chandeliers sparkled above tables set with white linens and gold centerpieces. The guest list overflowed: philanthropists, lawyers, celebrities, and ordinary citizens who had donated small sums online. Lena found herself seated beside Marisol, who had gone undercover as Dorsey's final test. "You inspired me to record everything," Marisol said over a glass of sparkling water. Lena nodded. "Your footage was the linchpin." The legal team gathered around a projector to review the digital evidence. Mindy Chin, the Foundation's lead counsel, outlined the coming trial timeline. Depositions of witnesses would begin next week, followed by a hearing on the legality of Dorsey's contract. "This is landmark territory," Mindy noted. "We'll set a precedent. Contracts created through coercion are null and void, and predators are liable for damages." Lena watched the slides flicker: screenshots of hidden cameras, audio transcripts, the list of names of women coerced under false pretenses. Beyond the courtroom battles, Lena worked tirelessly alongside Mindy to coordinate a global class action lawsuit. They partnered with international lawyers in London, Nairobi, and Tokyo to challenge coercive contracts worldwide. Each case filed amplified their message: no individual should be subjected to hidden cameras or psychological manipulation in their own home. Settlement offers from firms poured in, some totaling millions. Lena grappled with the ethical dilemma of accepting funds meant to support survivors and fund prevention programs. In the weeks that followed, Lena and Jade convened a global advisory council of survivors, psychologists, technologists, and legal scholars. They drafted a charter for universal tenant protections, advocated for legislation in national parliaments, and collaborated on a mobile app enabling discreet reporting of violations. Their volunteer network swelled to thousands, offering peer-to-peer support groups and legal aid across continents. Together, they published Voices Unmuted, a collection of survivor testimonies and resources for anyone at risk of deceitful power plays. Weeks later, an invitation arrived. Lena was to speak at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. Standing before delegates, she recounted her ordeal, then outlined Silent Test's mission: prevention, protection, and empowerment. As ambassadors nodded in solemn agreement and member nations pledged support, she realized the ripples of her actions had become waves. The auditorium burst into applause. This was more than a personal victory. It signaled a global shift toward accountability. The following morning, headlines proclaimed, "Dorsey Empire Crumbles, Landlord Experiment Exposed." Articles analyzed the psychological implications of loyalty tests, the vulnerability they exploited. Podcasts interviewed Lena and Jade, experts debated the ethics, and social media buzzed with calls for similar investigations worldwide. People reached out from Paris, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, stories of landlords and employers who coerced tenants and staff. "We never imagined this could happen in plain sight," one tweet read. Lena felt both awe and urgency at the scale of solidarity. Back at the Foundation's headquarters, a converted brownstone, Lena and Jade reviewed grant proposals. They planned workshops on digital safety, legal rights, and community support networks. "Education is our next frontier," Jade said, mapping out a curriculum for high schools and universities. Lena added, "And we need to integrate AI tools to detect unauthorized surveillance devices." They sketched wireframes on a whiteboard, determined to build tools that would outlast the headlines. Days later, a message arrived from a major streaming service. "Proposal: documentary series on silent tests." Lena and Jade met with producers at a sleek studio. The team outlined season arcs: the rise and fall of Dorsey's network, survivor journeys, global comparisons. "We want authenticity," one executive said. "Your voices must lead." Lena exchanged a look with Jade. "This is how we reach millions more," she whispered. They signed letters of intent, hearts racing at the prospect. On a Saturday morning, Lena visited a community center hosting a digital literacy workshop. She demonstrated how to detect hidden cameras, secure personal data, and comprehend legal protections. A room full of teenagers leaned forward, enthralled. One student raised his hand. "Can we volunteer?" Lena smiled, scanning eager faces. "Absolutely. We need you to speak truth to power." Months passed, and silent tests gained recognition far beyond the media spotlight. Lena was nominated for the Global Humanitarian Award, alongside activists who had changed the world through compassion and courage. On award night, she sat in a sea of luminaries, humbled and hopeful as her name was called. As she accepted the trophy, she dedicated it to every survivor who had shared their truth. Exiting the stage, she caught Jade's eye in the crowd, their smiles reflecting unspoken gratitude. Lena switched off her phone, ready to face whatever came next with unwavering resolve triumphantly. The end. Love the story? Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and become part of the Brandon Tales family. Your support helps us bring more powerful African tales to life. Thanks for watching. We can't wait to share the next one with you. See you soon.